Hi, this is Nick Dawson, the Editor-in-Chief of Talkhouse Film, and you're listening to the very first Talkhouse Film podcast. Talkhouse Film is all about filmmakers sharing their take on new movies and TV shows, but also whenever we can, we bring together in conversation two people whose work we love. In many ways, Hal Hartley and Joe Swanberg are each emblematic of a generation of American independent directors. Hartley, the creator of smart, off-kilter comedy dramas from the 1990s, and Swanberg, a figure at the forefront of the so-called mumblecore crowd that emerged in the mid-2000s. Both have new movies out now. Hartley's Pared Down My America, which weaves together a series of short theatrical monologues examining the state of the nation, is streaming on Fandor, and Swanberg's Happy Christmas, a charming Chicago set drama starring Anna Kendrick, Melanie Linsky, and Swanberg himself, is already on VOD and will be released theatrically on July 25th. We connected the two of them on the phone, and this is what happened next.
Can I start by reminiscing a little bit? Well, it's a real trip for me to talk to you because you definitely had a huge influence on me wanting to be a filmmaker. So, when I imagine like my high school self reading John Pearson's book or something, and then going to the video store and trying to find all your movies, it's really cool.
Never an easy thing trying to find movies.
They were around,
good to hear.
cool. Like Bravo, before Bravo was what it is now. I don't quite know what it is now, but they used to show a lot of movies.
Yeah, they do show up. I don't watch TV much myself, but since I make the music for my movies, I get ASCAP royalties. So that's how I know that the films are showing. I get a check for like all this money. I'm like, wow, no such thing. What happened there? And then I'll see it was playing on IFC or something for a month.
Right.
But
it's great stuff, man. I mean, it's really it really was totally instrumental in rearranging my brain and
wow. No?
Yeah.
You have an effect on somebody. I'm sure your films are doing the same thing with people. Now, I was really confused. I thought I had met you once before, and they said we'd be talking. I thought we had met at Sundance or at this festival a couple of years ago in Amsterdam.
No, I've never been there. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it would have stuck out to me.
Yeah. I lived for a long time in Berlin, so I was always going to these festivals on the continent, and that was where I was like meeting most of the newer generation filmmakers.
Well, I'm the same way. I mean, in Chicago, I have some filmmaker friends here. There's some great people working here, but for the most part, my connection to the film world is via festivals. Do you edit your own stuff?
I work with a gentleman named Kyle Gilman, who's...
What's that collaboration like?
Well, it's great. I mean, I had always edited my own stuff, and then when things started becoming digital, I just, I needed somebody who was younger and more savvy, tech savvy with digital stuff. And Gilman is a good editor. He was my student. I was teaching for a little while at Harvard, and he was one of my students there, and the only student who really wanted to get into the film biz. And he's a genius with tech stuff. I just sit in the room behind him all day long and talk. And he has a computer and he cuts and stuff like that. These days it's like with the new film Ned Rifle, which is going to come out later in the fall. He can anticipate me now. He knows my tempo.
Right.
He if it's a single and somebody pauses, he kind of has a feeling Hal's going to want to hold on the pause and then cut to the other person once they start talking. You know, things like that. Really very subtle, which is fun. It's lovely to be able to like walk around the room and think on different planes while the technical, you know, it's really strictly technical work is being carried out by somebody else, which is you know, technical and artistic. But you know, he's very sensitive cutter.
Do you shoot a lot so that you have a ton of stuff in the editing room? Or you...
Not really. I don't do a lot of takes. I do as many takes as needed, and particularly now that we're shooting in HD and stuff. You know, so it's not so critical. You know, but I came up shooting 35 millimeters, so you know, you really had to be prepared, and you didn't want to shoot more than you needed to. But I'm
trading because I'm shooting film these days now. After having come up, so we crossed paths at some point, and now I'm like really limited with my shooting ratio.
It's good. It's a good discipline, you know. I'd rather put the work into prepping for the shot rather than just, you know, shooting, finding something out, and then changing my mind and doing it again. You know, it's, I mean, there are times certainly where I've had a way to shoot a scene or a particular shot, you know, and I said, this is really the way to do it. And we do it, and I discover something else through it. Yeah. But I've always felt it's best to go in knowing what you want to achieve in the shot or the scene.
How early would you say your sensibility started to form?
I think probably in college. That's where I really started having a lot of stuff thrown at me. You know, the SUNY Purchase where I went, you know, the film department is in the basement of the music building. So for one thing, we were always around musicians. And actually two of my editing teachers had been musicians. You know, so we were always thinking about music. And then right next door to us, the other building was the acting conservatory and the dance conservatory. So we were always seeing performance stuff like that. And I saw a lot of theater, of course, and my education, I had to read lots of plays and stuff like that. But probably by the time I left college, I had a preference for more formal, more choreographed type theater.
Yeah.
And that applies to movies too, in a way, but it's broader in movies. And something about applying the camera to real events, you know, showing what people are really like. It's different than in theater. Like
for sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
theater is always hard for me to connect to anyway. Like it's just such a strange way to experience.
Yeah, like why pretend to be real? Why pretend to be real when you're on this stage, which is obviously a stage, and there are these people there? There seems to be like so much you can do with that.
Yeah.
But in movies, this kind of thing where you've got this machine that's just a machine, you know, with a sensibility behind it, of course, but you're recording this. Yeah, I don't know. It's something like the choice with the camera. You could choose how to look at the real world.
Right.
And that somehow mitigates the clumsiness of the naturalism that we see in theater.
I suppose you're getting a lot. Yeah, you're getting a lot more of the filmmaker's idea of reality than reality.
Yeah.
It's a subjective reality, which then makes it a little removed from.
Right.
Just
and I think that I want to hear the author's voice, or you know, whether it's the filmmaker's voice, whatever. I want to feel it. You know, and the choices that a filmmaker makes, you know, like you're saying, whether it's singles or not, to a long shot, watching people close, all these are the building blocks. That's the vocabulary that we have to work with.
Yeah, it's interesting because I really rejected that vocabulary. In a way, when I came out of film school, I felt like that if I could remove the vocabulary altogether and just kind of have the camera be a slave to the actors and sort of cover things like a documentary would,
right,
and not provide a ton of takes or traditional wides and mediums and close-ups, and that I could kind of accidentally discover a new language or sort of get at some sort of realism that film grammar wasn't getting at. But it's really changed for me. I mean, in the 10 years that I've been making movies now, I've really come back to film grammar like a cozy bed that I could snuggle into. Like a lot of smarter, better people than me already figured it out. So, I'm kind of
but you have to find it for yourself. That is true. I mean, there's a difference between theory and practice. You can know that Kubrick figured this out. You can know that, but it's those moments where, I mean, at this point, I've been doing it for like 25, 30 years now. Sometimes I have to remind myself, don't complicate this. This is about this woman sitting at the table thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Just make a good shot. You don't have to complicate it. You don't have to impose too much on it. But nevertheless, the intensity with which you see, I think, is what moves a lot of people.
Yeah.
The clarity, or that's what moves me a lot. But I think sometimes that maybe there might be people who are filmmakers who are naturally nervous, anxious people, and I'm curious to see what kind of shots they make. Whether you can feel that or not.
Right. And do you feel like that's feelable in the composition or more in the pace of the editing?
That's what I'm looking for in the composition. Yeah.
Do you know?
I mean, it's easier.
Nervous
it's easier.
Like, can you think of some?
I can't think of anybody. I can. It's easier somehow to see the opposite. In recent years, I've learned a lot and kind of caused me to reflect a lot on my craft from the films of Kelly Reichardt. I've known her for years. I haven't seen her in a long time, but her films, Old Joy and Lucy and Wendy and Lucy and stuff like that. She's got this really kind of old-fashioned, like 1970s European commitment to time. Like this shot is going to take a long time. That girl is going to get off the train station, walk across the street, wait, cross the street, come through the parking lot, drop her keys, and it's all, it's worked out. They know exactly every step that the girl's going to do, every step. But it's not going to rush forward. And I remember, even when I was in film school, even before I was in film school, I discovered the films of Werner Herzog. That was like a really big watershed for me. I was in art school. I wasn't making films yet, but I had started to make films, flirting around with it. And that was something that in the 70s Herzog really did in his story films, Caspar Hauser and his version of Nosferatu and stuff like that. That he let things take the time they actually took. And that was, being an American and growing up knowing only American movies, that was really a shock. The slowest American movie is not as slow as a Herzog.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do where are you landing on it right now?
On what in particular?
On the time thing. Like, is it it reflecting in your own work? Are you slowing down? Are you taking time with shots? And
no, I think it's a mix. I mean, I'm conscious of when I'm editing a feature, like this is a fast scene. This is not even the maybe fast and slow are not the right words to use, but active and non-active. Like I'll juxtapose scenes that are very filled with activity and a lot of chat back and forth.
Yeah.
And then we'll go right to a scene that's still, very, very still. But I think it's something to do with my heartbeat or something like that. But it's snappy. I like snappy, even when something, like I said, still. The shot of Parker Posey that we did in the new film, and she's in this prison cell. She's talking across the table to her son, and he says something that kind of freaks her out. And there's a kind of, I had to remind her, so, no, just kind of lean back and stay still, for it's like 10 seconds long. But it's very effective. And Parker is a great physical actress. She's one of the actors who fit very, very well with my interests, both in terms of physical activity and with facility of language. She really knows how to get, tongue-twisting dialogue in her mouth and, kind of physicalize it. But that shot, I remember, was really something like, she's perfectly still, but it's filled with activity somehow. Like she's I guess she's not perfectly still, but even an eyebrow going up or a wiggle of her shoulders or something like it's tiny, but it's active, and so But I do like to find those opportunities to make shots where ostensibly very little is happening, and then try to still choreograph it. A close-up for me is still choreographed. Which way are they looking? When do they look from here to there? Things like that. Yeah.
What's your attention span like these days as a person? Has the internet eroded it at all, or do you feel?
Yeah, I'm actually step by step trying to disconnect a little bit, be a little less connected.
I feel you. I'm in the same place right now. I really would like a little attention span back.
Just to little things, just to remind me. If I've got a Post-it note here on the computer that says "Go for a walk," like every afternoon at some point, I should just leave the apartment and walk for a while without the cell phone, without anything. Just to get a little bit of myself back. Because we're all so brilliant at multitasking now. I mean, we don't even think about it. I could be having a conversation with you, checking my emails, paying bills all at the same time, because it's all on the same computer and stuff. I think something is inevitably lost that way. We gotta slow down. Quiet.
I had to get off Twitter because of that,
that stuff is murder, dude. God.
Well, I would find myself in, just sort of moments that I maybe previously would have spent reflecting, or just sitting there quietly. I was just sort of with my thumb refreshing my feed because there's always something new there. There's always going to be something new there. So even if I just did it 3 seconds ago, when I do it again, there's another link to an article or another thought or another something. And so I just didn't have the willpower to use it in moderation. So it was better to get rid of it. But, it was affecting my relationship. It was affecting the time I spent with my son. He's only 3. I mean, he's still so little, but, he would want some attention from me, and I would be kind of half doing something with him and half looking at the phone. And it really scared me. He's learning via imitation right now. And so, it frightened me that would be his idea of adult life or sort of how mom and dad behaved was that the phone was kind of always getting half of our attention just off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And so then,
in the subway here. I see in the subway here, like young moms, handing the kid the iPhone to and the kid knows how to work it in the place. It turns things on and stuff. But it's just like they used to do with us when we were kids in the 70s. Just put us in front of a television set, and it pretty much worked all the time. We shut up.
Right. Yeah, totally. It's weirdly, I'm less worried about him with the technology than I am with myself. It's kind of inevitable for him. I mean, it will be a part of his life from the moment he was born. But for me, it really, I didn't use the internet really until I got to college, and I didn't have a cell phone until I had graduated from college. So I remember life without that stuff, and I think I've lived long enough with it now to realize that nothing's better. It's not the quality of things isn't better. I'm not happier. It's not really doing anything for me other than it's replacing things I used to do. So when I rode the train, I used to bring a book with me. Now I'm on Instagram instead, but it's the book was better for me. So I'm trying to go back to the book.
I remember having older people, one particular old person, when it was the late 70s, early 80s, complaining that I spent too much time with my book. Like, why don't you just get your nose out of the book and just go out and play and do something? There's even certain people who weren't very bookish or whatever, they saw even books as a technology that was sapping the human strength or something.
We have been going out a lot. I've been taking a lot of walks too. It's really, in addition to feeling a little more connected to my neighborhood and community and just kind of the vibe of the outside, I find that I think better on my feet too, and that if I'm walking around, certain things occur to me that aren't ever going to occur to me if I'm sitting there trying to think about them.
It has to be, we have to remind ourselves that discursive thought, is cool too. Just thinking for the sake of thinking. Because it's something that technology does, because most technology are problem-solving things. So it creates in us the attitude that thinking ought to just be solving problems. Like that, that's productive, or that's a good idea. And discursive thought is kind of considered useless and dreamy, whatever. We have to be careful with that. Nevertheless, I really do think, how technology changes how we interact with each other is, for me, I can't get away from it. No matter what I'm writing, it's not obviously about technology or something, but I have to address all that because it's interesting how people change. I mean, like you were saying, nothing really has changed, but there's a lot of superficial stuff that has changed. Like people even not looking you in the eye as much, or people not seeing where they're going. This is hilarious to me. I keep like a notebook and watch when I walk around the city. People constantly bumping into each other, almost walking into traffic because they're checking their text messages as they cross Broadway. And they're like, they're not physically in their body anymore. It's just an appendage to their mobile device, which is where everything really important to them is happening.
Well, it's really seductive because the level of communication available is really exciting. I mean, it's it's pretty cool to be having 8 conversations at once. It's kind of amazing to be able to do
that. No.
Often we're capable of it, and so you
things are really legitimately different in this world. Like, for instance, I'm talking to you from the headquarters of Possible Films, right? It's just me and a computer now. Has been for like 10 years. I used to have like 4 people working.
Right.
So I actually don't need them, you know.
So what's changed in film for you in the time that you've been doing it? Is it better, worse, easier, harder? How's your read?
Well, it's always easier when you have a film that everybody likes. So, you know, there's ups and downs like that. You know, your particular interests just aren't like in step with what the distributors are interested in or what the audiences are interested in seeing. So just hold on a second, Jeff. Hey, so there's that. You know, everybody's got to deal with that, you know, but that's not so bad. Technologically, yeah, it's changed. Not so much the making of films. Like, it's odd. Like, now films can be made for a lot less. You know, I just made a film for $300,000. Which has got 5 times the production value of like $1 million film I made in 1990. Something like Simple Man or something like that. You know, so the cost of making a film, the equipment, everything, is really cheap. But there's so many films out there that can't get distributed. And so that seems to be changing too, different ways of getting the films out to people. I feel like are almost like I really wanted them to be when I started making films. Like when I made Trust or The Unbelievable Truth, I was hoping like, I'll just have this place, this apartment or this office, you know, and we'll have everything, and we'll just make films, and edit the films. But everything was really heavy and expensive back then. Now everything's really light and not expensive.
Right.
So that's nice, but I'm also older, and I don't really have the same kind of energy. That changes too. You know, you got to figure that in. I'm interested in television now. I'm interested in what you feel about that. Like, I really think that is an interesting way for me to go now, to develop a television show of some kind, and you know, pursue my own interests. And you know, it would probably be something follows in the line from my body of work anyway, but it's aimed at, you know, serialization or just standalone. How do you feel about that? You think about television?
I'm really conflicted about it. I do. I definitely do, because you know, I watch the good stuff that's out there. You know, there's quite a bit of it that's exciting to me right now, and so a lot of smart, exciting filmmakers are moving there. But you know, there's a part of me that's really feels like we're in danger of abandoning the cinema. You know, of kind of leaving it in the dust just because there might not happen to be a lot of money or eyeballs there right at the moment. And if we stick it out, we could bring people back. But you know, I don't know. Yeah, I do think about it. I have some ideas that I think make more sense for television than they do for the movies, and
it's a big learning curve. I have to, even though the thing about
TV right now, the biggest barrier in the way that I think about it is that with the movies, I am absolutely my own boss at the moment. You know, I'm not working for anybody. If I have an idea, I can raise the money, I can get the crew together, I can get the actors I want to work with, and we can go make that. And I am sort of able to do it cheap enough that it's not a major risk in terms of the financials involved. So nobody's checking in. It's 100% exactly the thing I want to make. And there aren't really avenues for TV yet where you don't have to deal with people in a kind of the capacity of having a boss. And I haven't had a boss for a really long time. And so
I know
you kind of scared.
You get used to that.
Yeah. So
well, I'll let you know what I learned.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, those avenues may open up eventually. Like, Louis C.K. is sort of the example that everybody is
keeps bringing up. Yeah.
He seems to have a really good deal where they give him the money, he delivers the show, and as long as that keeps happening, nobody's checking in on him. So maybe I'll just sort of hold out until I can feel like I can find a similar.
Can do that, yeah. Yeah, it is. That's what I hear around from my managers, and like Kyle Gilman, my editor, he cuts the TV show, he cuts the Mark Maron show on occasion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the word on the street seems to be that there is such a need for product, to put it in really crass commercial language. There's such a need. They have so many hours, so many channels, so many outlets, so many platforms. They just need so much stuff that if they trust you reasonably, Louis C.K., this is a known entity, this is a guy, we know who he is, and he's put this first show together, and he's got this plan, so let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So it is about currying trust on your side, too. You present yourself as somebody who's reliable.
How do you feel about ownership? There's also that aspect involved. Television is sort of inherently a work-for-hire situation.
Yeah. No, I'm prepared for that. At 55, I'm like, just pay me. Pay me the money.
Yeah.
And good luck. Because I remember being a few years ago, I was at the Toronto Film Festival, one of my films, I think. And I met Adam McGoyan, who's an old friend, and we were guys in their late 40s, but we were like crotchety old men. We're like, who ever talked us into owning our own stuff? Because it's such a lot of work,
Right.
And I don't mind it, actually. There's a part of me that is a good office manager, and I like keeping everything in order. And it is kind of satisfying now after all these years. I own the rights to most of my film, and I relicense them, and, a large part of my income each year is from the relicensing of films I made 20 years ago. So that's satisfying. But it is a lot of work. I really have to, sit in front of the computer and do accounting and stuff like that more than most people think filmmakers do.
I feel the same way. I mean, I'm in the same boat. The movies that I made 7 to 10 years ago are now starting to bring in a few $1,000s every 6 months or so, and it's a growing trend. So I suspect that that'll keep up. Plus the back catalog will kind of continue to grow and support.
Yeah, that's something I find that I have to remind younger filmmakers a lot of times. They just think of the moment, like, I'm going to get like $200,000 from, well, it doesn't happen too much anymore right now, but say 10 years ago, I'm going to get $200,000 from whomever, Magnolia or something like that, and we're rich. But I'm like, no, let's negotiate a better deal for ownership, and take half of that. You don't need $200,000 right now, but, when your son who's 3 is 20, you'll need more money later.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that was great, Joe. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, it's really nice to talk to you. It really is an honor, man. It's been really a big part of why I'm doing this. So thank you.
Great. Well, if you come to New York, let me know.
Okay, we'll do.
So we'll get together, so we can talk face to face one of these days.
We can go for a walk.
Yes. Great.
All right, man.
All right.
Hi, this is Nick Dawson from the Talkhouse. Thank you for listening to the first Talkhouse Film podcast. For more filmmakers talking about film and TV, go to film.thetalkhouse.com.
So, hi, this is Hal Hartley in New York, and you're listening to Talkhouse. What is this? This is a...
the Talkhouse Film Podcast, I think.
Yeah, a podcast. It's a podcast.